Yeah, he's beautiful.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I'm actually interested in that just a little bit myself, just a little bit.
So, the calls I'm getting.
The accountability thing of PD and everything. You know, I'm actually kind of a little bit curious about that.
Absolutely. So, what if I were to tell you that high command thinks I'm a snake and to watch out for me and I'm a dangerous man? And then what if I were
lawyers? So I would assume that that's probably
Hmm.
exactly why they think that, because you're just there to help people get out of the charges that they have. So
That's exactly it. You know, the only thing I did was ask for a FOIA, which is my ability to get documentation as to why someone was arrested, why they got a warrant, etc., etc. And I learned this because I was trying to defend my client, Fiona Stewart, who was forced into becoming a hostage at a cash exchange robbery by the police department, who subsequently did not write a report over the matter. And when I went down and found out they didn't have a report, we did the next logical step, which is she was going to write a victim statement. And then I was going to FOIA that, and then we were going to, take the next steps. But you know what happened instead? The dispatcher there said, she's not going to get that for 5 days. And I'm like, first off, what's with the attitude? And second off, why would we wait 5 days? We're giving it to you right now. And she said, oh, the DOJ. Oh. And I'm like, well, we're doing it right now. And she's like, well, that's how it works. So I end up calling her useless. And I said, can you get someone down here that knows how to do their job? So after which she called up Murphy and Siobhan, like complaining about me, and then updated my profile saying that I'm a bad person and I need to be trespassed. Now, none of this shit really bothers me except for the fact that if this piece of shit that's just like a glorified front attendant is updating over personal grievances a profile that every officer and judge can see, which inherently changes the way that I interact with other officers, how judges may rule, etc., etc., then what the fuck is the PD doing? And where the hell are they coming up with this whole idea that you gotta wait 5 days regardless? Well, I start looking into the legislation because obviously I'm gonna bite back. And it turns out in the last 7 months, that process was never in legislation, meaning in like the case of my client that just called me, if you're in trouble and I as your lawyer need to go find out what happened, the PD doesn't need to give me shit, which means I can't defend you.
Interesting.
Which means I have to YOLO put up a docket case to force them to produce something, and only then can we begin. So how does an attorney differentiate between, say, a real situation, let's say, in which one of you get into where there actually is a case, versus a bozo that is lying to me? You know what I mean? Like, our job becomes almost impossible. So I go speak with some of the judges. I then go speak with members of high command. And I'm like, look, I'm going to go write legislation and propose it to the city council and let them vote on it, right? As you would expect it would work, right? And I said, in the interim, look, here's my problem. PD high command, right? And I met with, oh my God, we got so many calls, and like, this is slacks. I got so many calls, and there's a big, all this like fluff, which just means nothing. Like, and I'm explaining to him, I'm like, if one of you guys got arrested today and they chose some charges, that means they're saying that we have enough evidence to put these charges on you. So why can't I have the document that says how they arrived to those conclusions? And I hear yabba dabba doo, someone might be in ICU. Well, if they're in fucking ICU and you can't give this statement, then and you need that statement, then how the fuck did you push the charges? These common sense things just simply are not comprehended by them. I then get redirected to Assistant Chief Ruby York, who then tells me that she doesn't give a fuck in so many words. And so then I bring up, well, what about the case of one of my clients who's been a civilian working in sanitation for 6 months, has been robbed to the extent that when you put his name into the MDT, apparently it comes up with 40 robbery results. That's how much he was been robbed. But because one of his guns was undocumented, he now has a warrant that does not expire. And she says, well, how much is a license? 10,000? Well, maybe he should take better care of his gun. I nearly grabbed her by the throat and threw her off the building. I was that pissed. These are the people that are protecting and serving us. Now, they're not all like that. There's plenty of really good officers. But where is this demeanor and where's this coming from? So I took it to the next logical step, and I talked to a Chief Justice, and I'm like, how do these people not know how to do FOIAs? They're not following the process, and it's not in legislation. So if some client gets fucked, I can't even sue the PD. Because technically, legally, they didn't do anything wrong. And that's when Crane descends down into Polito. And he's pissed at me for asking questions and doing my job and his attorney. I'm apparently doing too good of a job. And he's mad at me. And I'm like, why are you mad at me? Why is this guy got like a fucking, like he's got like a fucking, like something's eating up his fucking ass crack or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what? And after a begrudging back and forth of him in the what word it? Minimizing the concern. After minimizing the concern and just saying, well, they're supposed to do it this way and supposed to do it that way, which is irrelevant to me, right? Like, what am I going to say? Hey, guys, Crane said you got to do it this way. These guys run the police department. And the document that they're utilizing isn't in law. So why would they need to adhere to it? And it's confusing. It's, gentlemen, ladies, it's like one paragraph with bad grammar. It's no surprise people get confused what is and isn't right.
So like half the laws in the city?
Like half the laws. Oh, it's probably the worst thing I've ever read in my life. It's, I swear to God.
Is this like the driving force of why you're actually like running for mayor then?
It is. Because what happened after following that is Crane told me he was going to write the FOIA process. And he said he's going to go out to Chiliad and write it. A couple days go by, he's still working on it. I reconvene with him on Tuesday. And he reopens the why do you need this? Why are they doing it this way? Give me an example. Tell me exactly which people are affected. Tell me exactly what lawyers are also affected, because the other lawyers are having issues with this too. So he's asking me to bring up things that I wasn't prepared for, because we were over there to discuss what was going to be in this document, not reopen the whole thing. After 3 hours, me telling him to shut the fuck up and start writing because I was sick of his bullshit, the document gets completed and it gets published the next day, only for me to find out that another justice has actually written it. And for 3 hours, he just plagiarized the document into his own words.
Huh. Okay.
And I've seen it. This isn't even, I've got both copies. And so when I sit back and then I look at all the fucking legislation that's been passed, as you mentioned, and notice that none of this shit helps you guys or anyone in the city. It just finds more reasons to throw you into prison and does nothing to improve your lives and improve your quality of life and help you run businesses and make clarity on things. I question what the fuck they've been doing for the past 7 months. And why is it that when someone asks why, there's such a disdain for it? As if I have looked at their child and said it's ugly. I didn't even say it's ugly yet. I just question why his nose is crooked.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I know there's a couple of legislations that are in there that kind of have me wondering more things about it than anything else. There's a couple that I feel like aren't there that really should be. It took me pulling teeth.
I love the random shit I come up with.
The housing market actually works for like somebody to like get evicted finally. Well, at least I got there somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know legislation's definitely been like the biggest thing on a lot of people's mind. I know like businesses is another big thing, at least for us and whatnot. You mentioned something about commerce, some sort of
Yes.
commerce thing that you were doing.
So there's a lot of things I'd like to improve on, but there's three main things I want to target. Number one is increasing transparency. And what that means is every piece of legislation, I would ideally get to a point where we pass a bill that then gets voted on by the people of Los Santos. And that bill should be high enough in quality that people actively want to vote for it. And so the success of a council when it comes to legislation is how much gets passed. Now, I don't know if I can reach that because some of that may be at a federal level, but I want to get to as close to that as I can. And that means that people should know what's coming through. People should be able to petition that. People should be able to challenge it in advance of it getting ratified. And that just seems common sense. And while I can understand the existing council can't do it because they meet once a fucking week and just make up the shit on the spot, for a functioning government, they're around. They have their phones ready. People should be given a week to be like, hey, what about this? What about that? You know, petition it so that it can get exercised in advance of it. And then when legislation is passed, people should be able to propose amendments and justify it. The second thing is I want lawyers to get more agency. Right now, they are under the helm of the same man that is putting a diaper on the police department and letting them do whatever the fuck they want. Which, imagine the guy who hands the bar license telling a lawyer to stop lawyering. That in and of itself shows the ineffectiveness and the lack of checks and balances in the entire system. And so, now once again, that agency probably cannot be had right away, nor is the segment of lawyers at a point where they can, you know, develop on their own accord. But how do we get them there? Well, the first thing is that give the lawyers the support necessary to write legislation for their clients. So if, let's say, y'all are having a very specific issue here in Sandy Shores, like let's say someone was dumping garbage into the lake back there, right? And let's say this right here is a very, this is a foolish example, but let's say this is causing you guys grievances, right? And why you should be able to go to your attorney, have him help you write legislation for it. So it's 90% of the way. He's got the other lawyers there to help peer review it, give their input from their different areas of expertise. And then it hits the desk of the consul. And then the consul votes. That saves.
I like that idea.
It just,
it's not a terrible idea.
No, I think this is how other governments work. You've got legislators.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, senators sit down and they're like, all right, guys, I'm going to go write 40 pages. No, they've got other people from other places that are writing it, proposing it, and it's going up the chain. And it gives...
shit, there's still not, like, any case laws that I've heard about at all. Like, that's the other thing that I've noticed, like, in legislation.
They are now. So that was the other thing I got pushed out.
Okay.
Is it wasn't just me, but I brought it up that same day I met with Crane. Is it's like, well, these common laws not there. I'm like, why is it not in the legislation tab? And there was a lot of yabba dabba doing. Now it's up there. Now, I want to be very clear. I wasn't the only one that was pushing for it, but it's there now. And the only thing I want you guys to think about this. There's 20 pieces of legislation I helped push out too. Actually, call it 3 now. Because remember the thing I said about Carmine Costello?
Yeah.
Guess what? It got updated this morning. So, I
Oh, damn.
am effective. I am focused. I am passionate. And I want to fill these cracks that should have been filled the last 7 months. I want to develop our legislation along the lines of common fucking sense. See, even he's hyped right now.
Get me too hyped.
I want people to feel as though that they are protected by the law and not abused by the law. Because, look, we all do things that are illegal. And eventually we end up in jail. But ending up in jail because you did something illegal versus getting thrown into jail because, well, you know, like look at the business law, for example. That legislation says that if you guys end up owning this tavern, which maybe you do already, that the government owns it. But they can just walk inside when you're sleeping and check what's inside of it. Oh, look, something illegal. Maybe, I don't know, your food's at 20%. There's like something in there that you were experimenting with. And now all of a sudden they take the business over. Why? Because some cop was allowed to do it because they just felt like fucking with you guys. And now what do you do?
Okay.
The third thing is, yeah, but according to legislation, they're allowed to do it, and no one's challenged it. I don't think these guys at the sitting council actually know what the fuck they're passing, because they don't even understand the simple concept of every piece of legislation needs to be abided by the Constitution. So literally their own legislation is illegal. The last thing is the Department of Commerce, which as of right now, business proposals go to the desk of the mayor and he says approve or deny. Your thing can be pending for weeks. You might get denied and you don't know why. Your friend might get approved, but you get disapproved. What did he do right or what did you do wrong? Is it a friend? Is it a foe? Did he like you? Did he not like you? What was the reasoning? Nobody knows. With the Department of Commerce, whom I'm looking to have Eve Summers take the helm of, is going to be a department focused on ensuring everyone from the small guy to the big guy has their proposals reviewed and then given feedback as to whether it's approved by them with a reason that everybody in the city can look at, or denied, and what the reasoning is and what the course of action is for them to take to repropose. So everyone knows what the reasons are something was approved and what it was disapproved. Transparency. Alongside that, a dedicated lawyer that will be focused on improving legislation around businesses. So when individually or as a group you decide to do something in the business space, you know exactly what's going on. And you can't get jerked off just because, I don't know, I had an altercation with you guys and all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? Screw Chaos Legion. I'm going to hit the decline button. No.
Okay.
Can I have a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So, accountability for PD, but I would like to ask what are your ideas for accountability towards government employees and council itself?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. I want to one of the things I want to do in my first week is find a way in which you can hold me directly accountable as well as the rest of the city council. And if there is a justifiable, because right now I don't know how it's working, where like Solomon Walker is suspended because of the belief he might be corrupt, but Max and Siobhan have docket cases, yet they're still not suspended. There needs to be a very clear protocol as if X and Y happens, then these things happen. Right now, the way it works is some person, probably Crane, makes that decision and then things occur. That procedure needs to be clear. And I want it to a point where if at any point there's a justifiable reason, there would be a vote or by the people to oust that person from their position. Because if I'm not afraid of the people, then there's something wrong. The people should not be afraid of the government. The government should be afraid of the people.
Okay. Following this, how do you want to incentivize Department of Commerce to actually do their job?
That is by filling it with individuals that have real passion. Eve Summers is a very good friend of mine, and also my niece.
Awesome, but passion doesn't feed people, so.
Yes. I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna answer that question.
Okay.
And the reason I selected her is because she did something that very few people would do. She put her hand in garbage and work garbage and made an entire independent company that was functioning despite the fact that the sanitation union, run like the mafia, could have shut her down. And she persisted. Enough so that not only did I become one of her clients, allowing my Los Santos customs to function, but she also supplied a lot of other groups around the city despite the odds. And she did so, and she priced those things to be fair. She's also has a long history of helping people through that passion to make sure that they can succeed. And she's got a history of that. I just got done talking to Ash Ketchup, who by her own accord has been writing legislation to help businesses with these issues. It starts with that passion. But after that comes ensuring that those who have that passion are put into place. And now if they're not producing, well, you gotta get rid of them. I don't know if that answers the question. Are you asking, like, are they going to get compensated, or did I misunderstand?
Like, actually, when Archie was running for mayor back in the day, we kind of had a conversation how to incentivize people, for example, reviewing business proposals, right? For every business proposal, like, full review done with, like, as you said, justification of denial or approval, and some guideline, some pointers what to do next for that people. And after like such approval is such review is submitted, that person, for example, gets, I don't know, $1,000 or whatever other equivalent in money there should be. It's just an idea how to, actually.
Oh, I see. So those are the final details that would need to be worked out over time. I believe in a very like iterative process when it comes to developing things. And so when it comes into the minutia of like, okay, are we going to siphon off some funds, et cetera, those are things that need to be developed out. But I think monetary solutions are not the first solution, because
it's
if
just
you
like, at the end of the day, the people will have need to make a choice. They want to do something for the people, quote unquote, or do they want to do something to put food on their tables, right? Or after fucking 100 for I don't know, 1,000 review they made, they're just like, oh my god, I'm done with those idiots writing some 5-minute makeshift fucking proposals, and I'm not even getting anything from it. I'm just thinking about how actual clerk work and work of government workers, how mundane it gets after some time. And
absolutely. And I think that goes hand in hand with the government needs to and should be run like a business. And that means keeping a pulse on it. Keeping a pulse on it to see how many applications are coming through. Keeping an open door to see what is making them tick and what's not making them tick. And sometimes that means replacing those who are losing the passion, or might, you can only do something for so long, and putting others in place. The reason that I am never going to put money first is for the same reason I'm doing what I'm doing. I make $7.50 an hour doing law work. I wouldn't be a lawyer, if it was for the money. In fact, I wouldn't be running for office if it was for the money. I've had my time. I've had my time of power. I've done things that people couldn't even dream of in this city. And, I think it's that passion and that care for the people of Los Santos that is driving me to do what I'm doing. And I want to surround myself with said individuals.
So with that being said, because this is something that kind of hits me, because you
Sure.
wouldn't believe it if I told you, like, this isn't normally when a lot of us are actually awake. A lot of us are a little bit more awake in the earlier times, and a lot of that comes with struggles of actually being able to get a hold of somebody on either the council or even in like the mayorship and everything. Do you have like plans in store for that to try to help like get communication easier over to you?
Well, I've been awake for 8 hours, so I think we'd have crossover. So I think I hit most of the key times before tsunami, after tsunami. But I think that comes hand in hand with making sure that my cabinet is accessible. Between myself, Kit Acha, Eve Summers, Archie, I think we cover most time zones. And the way I'm looking to do availability is that any set group that represents, I'm going to try to, like, transparently, I'm going to try to avoid one-on-ones. Like, I got a phone call from a member of DOC that wanted to meet one-on-one. And while I appreciate his particular feedback, the reality is that that doesn't scale. And I know that could only cause me to burn out. And I told them, like, listen, let's get all your people together and let's talk as a group, right? So that way they're getting answers to the questions that even he's asking. And with that said, I think I'd want y'all to be able to either independent, like as a group or like as a business or whatever, be able to set up meetings, you know? So,
Okay.
hey, we need to talk about this. Okay, we'll schedule something. I'll be around, you know? And I think that's a good first step, you know?
Okay. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Nino at all?
I do.
Yeah,
Go for it, John.
please.
When you get elected, could you possibly make it legal to trap weed out of the trap house right over there so the cops leave me alone?
So that I cannot do. However, on that topic, I'm currently researching weed laws because apparently there's allegations that singular joints are resulting in felonies because the police department is leaning on some odd like loophole that lets them press the charge, which I don't know why the fuck that's occurring, but
So, like,
The,
you
the,
can.
the joints weigh 2 kilos.
But the rolling paper weighs 2 kilos. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the rolling paper is printed with the weight of the entire roll, and when you use the rolling paper, that text gets transferred to the joint, and then PD is stupid.
oh my god. See, and this is where the legislation comes in. Like, PD, as much as there's some good ones in there, some of them have clearly displayed, I don't know where the fuck they're finding these people, or how they're being trained, but like, common sense is kind of like an enigma to them. And I think that's where legislation comes into play, is that as much as some things should be obvious, some of it truly needs to be written in like I don't know, like
I mean, I'll be honest. I've literally watched somebody sell weed in front of a police officer get shot, and they did absolutely nothing. They let them go. So-
Jesus fucking Christ. So
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
that, and then you
yeah.
have someone going in for a felony because they had a personal joint, like,
Yep.
and they're not like, hey man, why is there a misdemeanor charge and a felony charge and one joint? Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yep.
It's an abuse of ignorance and interpretation of the law, knowing full well that lawyers up until this week haven't been able to fight back, and now that people are asking questions, they're freaking out. And honestly, look, if I do something illegal, you know, I deserve it. But I think, you know, everyone, you know, there's a difference between law and abuse, and I feel like the
Yep.
needle's been way too much on the left-hand side.
Anybody else have any questions for Nino?
So I've got a question about something you spoke on earlier, kind of piggybacking off it.
Mhm.
You were saying about Ruby York, was saying that, you know, guns and, you know, people being robbed, it's, you know, them being negligent firearms owners.
Mhm.
What's your take on the situation that's going on at the moment, where people are having their firearms license removed without any, you know, police interaction other than a text message like, hey, we reviewed your file, we've taken your license?
I'm glad you asked that question. That is actually the majority of my clients are facing that issue. Half the warrants are about that. It's insane. It is an abuse of power. It's lazy police work. It's I think constitutionally illegal. And unfortunately, so right now I'm working with Judge Bailey to get new gun laws passed. And we're having that like sort of intellectual argument as to why that should be illegal. If you're curious, my statement is as such. I am unable to get a FOIA of anybody's warrant. So if there's a warrant out there, don't get to know what it's even about until that individual turns themselves in. I understand sometimes people find out, but that's because, you know, that cop might be breaking their procedure. I've made the argument that as a lawyer, I should be able to find out why that warrant exists. They're telling me it's an internal document, while subsequently that quote-unquote internal document is being publicized to the entire public that you're a felon and wanted, right? So first off, that doesn't pass that logic test. The second is, if that warrant is out there, why is it resulting in someone losing their firearms license if it's internal? If it's internal, then why is there then that means that's a violation of the Constitution. This is an illegal search and seizure. They're taking the license from you. So what the fuck? So which one is it? And then even further, just because a gun isn't on file doesn't mean that the individual did not report it, that the cop didn't enter it in, that the cop didn't ensure the report was written. Or in a worst case scenario, they queried the information wrong and couldn't find the report. So the whole system is so scuffed. Unfortunately, it goes back to that lack of critical thinking from the officer to the high command who hasn't thought about these problems and hasn't been like, man, these are a lot of criminal negligence of a firearm. I wonder why. You would think they would start asking these questions of, is this right and is this wrong? Now, hopefully, over the next coming days, there'll be a legislative change, but I'm doing what I can right now before being in office to get some movement in that space, because I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, if a cop can have their rifle taken from them and they're not negligent, but in the same situation, you stand civilian, suddenly he's negligent, what's that saying?
Yeah, 1,000%. I'll even extend it even further and say that these races who are racing through the streets and getting felony evading or whatever, why are they losing their firearms license? But they're racing, I get it, but it's not a violent felony. And that individual that has a firearm license, they probably have it so they don't get robbed by a gang. And so that otherwise non-violent individual having their gun license revoked means that now they're going to have to get an illegal weapon to protect themselves, which means you're spiraling that person that's, that can be redeemed onto a path that is very, very dangerous. So
I lost my license for a non-violent felony. Had no way to argue the call. Was just told that's the way it is. Good luck.
Yeah, I don't like that. It's just nothing should be that's just the way it is. It should be like, here is what the law is. And I think that when the legislation was originally put into place, the intent was to develop it based on the will and desires of the people. And that hasn't been done for 7 months. And as I've shown already through proof in, what's already been published, I want to continue this and do it even more so when I am in office and I have even more teeth to be able to bite with.
Since we're on the topic of the whole driving and stuff like this, I know I've been fighting for weeks now with PD in general about this. I want to know your thoughts on them using public roads for their pursuit training.
I think this falls in the same realm of the police department as it currently exists, and any emergency services don't have any restrictions placed on them. Instead, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and that's a dangerous precedence to set. And it's what resulted in an example I gave once again, Crane, in which I stated to him that one of my clients was demolished on the highway by an ambulance, and his vehicle is disabled. He's fucked up. I end up calling 911. They come down, they take a report, different EMS comes, and he wants to press charges on the EMS. And the cop was like, "Oh wait, what? What do you mean?" I'm like, "It's felony hit and run." They knew it happened. It wasn't like a little bump. They destroyed him and kept ramming into them. And the cop said, "Well, that's not technically a hit and run." And I pull up the charge, and it fit the description. After which they replied with, "Well, you know, they're an emergency vehicle." Now, is that right? Is it wrong? I don't know. I mean, I think I do know it is wrong, because they didn't 911, they didn't call on radio, and they admitted that they hit them, and quote unquote, I thought they would be fine. So now, do I think that this EMS is the most evil person in the world? No, of course not. But that's a victim, and to tell a victim that they can't get as much as like a legal apology is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too, because like I've told them a bunch of times. I've had one officer like say like that nobody's up here, nobody lives in these areas. That's why they do it. When like their only reason for actually doing these pursuit training, in a sense, is to try to make sure that their cadets are able to learn how to drive the car. And that's like their only excuse for using the public roads. Local's going crazy.
Jesus.
Get him, Ted.
But yeah, so that's
take my shit.
basically like what I've
Yeah.
heard from PD, and like every response that I've had is like, oh, we'll think about it, we'll look into it. When it's like, if they're just trying to drive a vehicle, like learn how to drive a vehicle, I don't know how hard it is to go to an airfield and just like, hey, this is the gas pedal, this is the brake pedal, like this is how you drive and operate the vehicle.
Yeah, I think when I hear we'll look into it, it's like the police way of saying, "Fuck you, I'm gonna do what I want." And
Yep.
I think they really enjoy being able to do whatever they want, but not under my reign. I'm not looking to take away their guns and make them ineffective, but you know, effectiveness doesn't mean go blasting, pinning people at 150 miles an hour, throwing them into cuffs and be like, "I think you did these things." That's
Okay.
yeah.
Anybody else? Any more questions?
Yeah, I think we're good for now.
All right.
I don't got anything.
Well, I appreciate your time, and look, I'm available with whatever, whenever. So if anything comes to mind, I wanted to start this campaign early so that it gives me enough time to not only develop it, but also I wanted to reach out to groups like yourself, because y'all represent not just who's here, but the civilians that depend on you. And in the next coming days, I'll have all my platform points publicly available on a website that allows you to not only hold me accountable to what I'm promising, but also is a starting point by which together we can slowly make some improvements. So, all right.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, appreciate you for coming down.
Yeah.
I know that you asked to talk with us in the beginning when we were at that meeting and everything, so we do appreciate you for reaching out on
Of course.
that, so,
And I know it's late for some of y'all, so I appreciate you, you know, staying awake much longer, I assume, to have this conversation.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right.
Appreciate your time, Mr. Chavez.
Yep. Y'all take care.
take care.
Yo.